Hey, what's up, my YouTube nerve herders? This is Jared Seach with Dungeon Crawlers. Today we're going to do a side-by-side comparison discussion of The Force Awakens versus the original 1977 Star Wars and then some of the original trilogy. So one of the first things that people have been talking about is the similarities between Luke and Rey. Yes, you've got the farmer boy or the scavenger that's going through Jakku or a desert planet that gets kind of sucked into all of this new responsibilities, force sensitive. We've got BB-8 virtually being R2-D2, leading the story to be driven the same way as Star Wars was. A droid given sensitive information that needs to be delivered to a rebellion or resistance in order to find, an ultimate means to defeating the Empire or the First Order. It is very strikingly close, but JJ has addressed it, and he has said that most of it was intentional, and that to recycle the plot, we need to recycle some of the storytelling aspects that we used in the original Star Wars. They escaped Jakku on the Millennium Falcon, which is very similar to escaping Tatooine on the Millennium Falcon with Han Solo once again. Another similarity is the relationship between Luke Skywalker and Ben Kenobi, as well as Rey and Han Solo. They just have this father figure presence with the characters. The chemistry is obviously in a mentorship kind of relationship, and yes, that can definitely be seen, but I don't think it recycles too much of Star Wars. I really do think that the relationship between Rey and Han has its own significance that maybe we haven't even seen yet. Now, the movie even starts off a little bit similar to the original Star Wars. If you remember, there was the Star Destroyer chasing the Tantive 4 over the planet Tatooine, and the Force Awakens actually opens in a very similar manner with a Star Destroyer hovering over Jakku before the assault on the village. Now, the ultimate plot, yes, the droid with sensitive information is pretty recycled, but at the same time, the plans to the Death Star really strikingly resemble, to me, the piece of the map to Luke Skywalker. Now, that to me was already a little bit of a weak plot point. It's like, we haven't quite discovered yet why Luke is so important. We can assume and we can make theories. We can make every excuse in the world to assume that Luke would create this big push towards defeating the First Order, but it's already been established that he took off. Like, after the Jedi Academy was slaughtered by Kylo Ren, he's gone. So who's to say that coming back and starting over again would benefit the Resistance in taking down the First Order? So who knows? Again, episodes 8 and 9 will explain a lot of this, and maybe most of this will be irrelevant. We're not even going to care about the similarities in the end because of how the trilogy as a whole comes together and explains everything, but we'll see. Now, jumping into the First Order a little bit, we do see some similarities in the leadership. General Hux is definitely reminiscent of General Moff Tarkin. He was very icy and cold and sometimes over the top and very authoritative, and I can see General Hux's character being influenced by Tarkin quite a bit. Then jumping over to Kylo, yeah, we do have a masked figure that's menacing and unstable, and that it is reminiscent of Darth Vader. But I think we can get away with that because he's technically a Skywalker. We were all expecting something like that from Episode 7. The First Order character that kind of stands out to me that's very similar to Star Wars, or actually Empire Strikes Back, is the authoritative figure behind the whole First Order, which is Snoke, Supreme Leader Snoke. And the only time we ever see him is through a giant hologram projector, and that sounds very familiar to what we saw in Empire Strikes Back. But pushing to one of the more sensitive and the more highly regarded parts that resemble Star Wars would be the resemblance of the Death Star and the Star Killer base. Now, this is where, even before the movie came out, just looking at the poster and seeing this giant weapon thing, I was a little bit worried. I was like, if we see a third Death Star, it's going to become more than a little redundant because we've already seen the first one. Epic. It was amazing. That's what started the whole journey of Star Wars. And then they brought it back in Return of the Jedi 2 movies later, and I felt that was acceptable. I felt that was a pretty good establishment of what the Empire was able to do. Not only did they watch their first Death Star get blown up, but then they build up another one and the same farm boys come in and blow it up again. So it to me worked in Jedi, but seeing it in The Force Awakens was redundant. And I know they tried to spin it in a certain way where it was like, well, it shoots out this beam that can destroy an entire star system at the same time, thus being called the Star Killer. And it has this little flux whatever that if you shoot it, it blows up. And it's a little bit different, but I think there could have been a little bit more creativity in the threat that the First Order brought to the Resistance and the galaxy, because again, this is something we have seen twice already. That leads into the final assault involving Poe and the X-Wing starfighters, and you know, it was so closely reminiscent of the Death Star assault that we saw in Star Wars, and it was really fun. I enjoyed Poe, I enjoyed the other pilots. It gives me something to really look forward to with Rogue One, but at the same time, I was just like, it's a little too close. I mean, the nostalgia level in this movie was already over the top. There was references to every little knick-knack that was in the original Star Wars, the training droid for Luke Skywalker, the chess game thing that Chewie loved to play. Like, there were so many references, and I was okay with that. And then there's a bunch of little things like, you know, stormtroopers going in and slaughtering that village is a little bit reminiscent of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. You know, the Empire dissolves the Senate in Star Wars. It's like, you know, they do the same thing by destroying the Republic. And then there's like character development stories that are similar, as where Han Solo did not want to get involved with the missions that the rebels were trying to put on him. Same thing with Finn. He had his own agenda. You know, Han wanted to be a smuggler and go out and make some money, pay back his debt to Jabba and all that stuff. And Finn, he just wanted to get away from the First Order. So there is obviously way too much to talk about in one short video about the similarities between Star Wars and The Force Awakens. Just, you know, if there's anything that really stood out to you, just let me know. Tell me what you think. Tell me if there's anything huge that I may have missed, and just look forward to another video where we get to actually defend The Force Awakens in its individualism, because I really do feel that there is enough in The Force Awakens that makes it its own movie, that makes it fun and entertaining, and it's just the basis of a three film trilogy. Like, we all need to understand that. Like, there's so many more questions walking out of this movie than walking in. But this is the first movie of a 3-movie trilogy. The first act out of 3 acts. So if we can accept that and embrace that and get excited about Star Wars and take The Force Awakens for what it is, because it's not a bad movie, it's a fun movie, it's a great movie. But we need to understand, when looking at the similarities to the original trilogy, that it was almost necessary to do so to relight the flame of the original films. The prequels didn't do that. They were great on their own terms. I actually do enjoy them. They're not perfect, but they're their own thing. The Force Awakens needs to be its own thing, but it needs to ignite the flame that made the originals exciting. And I think that JJ absolutely did the best with what he could. This is the first out of 3 films. Let's develop an overall opinion once all 3 movies come together and create one big story to create the biggest finale of any movie franchise history. Like, let's just be patient with it and just be excited with what we have. So again, tell me in the comments what you think. Are there any really big things that I may have missed? Anything that you want to have discussed? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section below. Send us a message. Do whatever you want in order to try and get involved. It would be really awesome to get involved with the YouTube community in discussing what we feel is similar and what we feel is unique. Again, new video coming out very soon about what makes The Force Awakens unique from Star Wars. And with that, may the Force be with you.